You deserve a love that feels like home, not like a war zone, a connection that brings peace to your soul, not confusion to your mind. So today we're diving deep into a powerful truth. If he does these 5 things, he's not the one. Let's get real. Love isn't just about butterflies, sweet texts, and dates. It's about consistency, safety, growth, and deep emotional connection. And sometimes the red flags are waving high, but we're wearing blindfolds made of hope. Today, I'm here to remove that blindfold. When a person makes you question your worth, what they're truly doing is reaching deep into the psychological roots of your self-concept and shaking the foundation. Worth isn't something externally validated. It's a quiet inner knowing that you matter without condition, without performance. But when someone repeatedly chips away at your confidence, questions your ideas, mocks your dreams, or subtly makes you feel like you're too much or not enough, they are often unconsciously trying to reshape the narrative you hold about yourself. This is not love. This is psychological erosion. Human beings are wired for connection, but we are also incredibly vulnerable to emotional conditioning, especially when affection is sporadic and paired with criticism. Our nervous system becomes confused. This is the paradox of intermittent reinforcement. When validation is given and then withdrawn, the bond feels stronger, not weaker. The very unpredictability becomes addictive. We start to work harder, trying to earn their praise, trying to reclaim their approval, trying to become enough for someone who is unwilling to see us clearly. But let's be clear, your worth is not determined by how someone else sees you. It's not measured by how often they call, how much they compliment you, or whether they approve of your ambitions or your past. Your worth is intrinsic. It's in your breath, your presence, your very existence. And when someone repeatedly causes you to doubt this truth, you begin to lose the ability to differentiate between genuine love and emotional manipulation. What happens over time is far more serious than just heartbreak. Chronic exposure to someone who diminishes you begins to rewire your self-talk. You internalize their criticisms. The voice that once belonged to them slowly becomes your own. You may hear it in the mirror when you get dressed. You may feel it in the silence before you fall asleep. That voice starts saying, maybe I'm too emotional. Maybe I do overthink. Maybe I am hard to love. But those are not your thoughts. They are echoes of someone else's insecurity projected onto you. People who make others question their worth often do so from a place of deep unconscious fear. They fear intimacy, vulnerability, and being truly seen. So to protect their own fragility, they attack yours. They make you feel small so they can feel in control. They don't want a partner. They want a pedestal to stand on. And if you allow it long enough, they will convince you that standing below them is where you belong. But that is not love. That is emotional colonization. Healing begins the moment you recognize that someone else's opinion of you is not a mirror, it's a projection. And often projections say more about the projector than they ever will about you. When someone sees you as too loud, too sensitive, too ambitious, too independent, ask yourself who benefits from me believing that. Because it's never you. You are not too much. You are simply standing next to someone who was too little to hold you. Now let's go deeper. Respect for boundaries is a cornerstone of authentic, healthy connection. A boundary is not a wall. It's not an ultimatum. It's a declaration of self-respect. Boundaries are how we teach others to treat us. They are not about control. They are about clarity. When you say no to what doesn't serve you, you are saying yes to your well-being. But when someone continuously pushes, dismisses, or tramples on your boundaries, they are not being romantic, persistent, or passionate. They are being invasive. Often the people who resist your boundaries the most are the ones who benefited from you having none. When you start to draw the line, they panic, not because you're doing something wrong, but because they can no longer manipulate you with ease. They might guilt you, accuse you of being distant, or even say you're being cold or heartless. But emotional maturity understands that boundaries are not rejections. They are invitations to connect more deeply, more safely, and more honestly. When a person respects your boundaries, they respect you. It shows they value your autonomy. They listen when you say no. They don't require constant justification for your choices. They don't use silence or anger to punish you for asserting your need. On the other hand, when someone reacts to your boundaries with irritation or withdrawal, what they're showing is that your discomfort is a price they're willing to pay for their convenience. Psychologically, people who habitually violate boundaries often come from experiences where boundaries were blurred or non-existent. They equate closeness with enmeshment and independence with abandonment. So when you create healthy space, they interpret it as rejection. But remember, it is not your job to shrink yourself to make someone feel comfortable with your growth. It is not your job to over-explain your no. A healthy partner will not require you to explain your basic needs like a defendant on trial. And yet many people, especially those with empathetic hearts, struggle with this. You want to be understanding, you want to be fair, but here's a truth most people won't tell you. Empathy without boundaries is self-destruction. Love without limits becomes martyrdom. The more you abandon yourself to maintain the illusion of peace, the further you drift from your own truth. To build a life rooted in emotional integrity, you must honor your own line. If he reacts to your boundaries with anger, guilt-tripping, sarcasm, or emotional shutdown, it's not a sign that you're difficult. It's a red flag that he does not know how to be in a relationship without control. Respect is not proven by gifts, messages, or apologies. It is proven by behavior. Over time, with consistency, the most profound love is not spoken, it's demonstrated. And if you ever find yourself in a space where someone makes you feel guilty for protecting your peace, please know this: you are not selfish for choosing yourself. You are not dramatic for asking to be respected. You are not wrong for walking away from someone who refused to honor your boundaries. You are simply awakening to the truth that emotional safety is not a luxury, it is a necessity. There is no intimacy without respect, no safety without boundaries, and no love without freedom. You are allowed to be your whole self, loud, soft, bold, quiet, full of fire or peace. And you deserve someone who doesn't just tolerate your boundaries, but celebrates them. Because love is not about possession, it's about protection of your heart, your mind, your energy, and most of all, your worth. When someone disappears the moment things begin to deepen, when the connection that once felt promising suddenly cools into silence or avoidance, it reveals something profound about their capacity for intimacy and commitment. This behavior is not merely inconsiderate or immature, it is often the manifestation of a deep-seated fear of vulnerability. To truly engage with another human being on a meaningful level requires a willingness to expose one's authentic self, the fears, the flaws, the hopes, and the dreams. When a person retreats at the threshold of emotional closeness, it suggests a defensive response to the overwhelming risk of being truly seen. In psychology, this tendency is often linked to attachment styles formed early in life.
Those who have experienced inconsistent caregiving or emotional neglect may develop an avoidant attachment, where intimacy triggers anxiety and a reflex to withdraw. The disappearing act in adulthood is a replay of those childhood patterns, a subconscious attempt to protect oneself from anticipated hurt or rejection. It is not a reflection of your worth or desirability. It is a reflection of their unresolved fears and emotional limitations. Yet the impact on the one left behind is tangible and painful. The sudden coldness creates a vacuum of uncertainty and self-doubt. You may find yourself ruminating, replaying conversations, wondering what you said wrong or how you could have done better. This cycle of confusion is a psychological torment. It erodes your peace of mind and distorts your ability to trust not only the other person, but yourself. The unpredictability of such behavior triggers a chronic stress response in your brain, releasing cortisol and activating the fight or flight mechanism, even when no immediate danger exists. Emotional availability is the foundation upon which genuine relationships are built. Without it, connections remain superficial, fragile, and fraught with misunderstanding. The person who disappears when things get serious is not prepared to engage with the full complexity of love and partnership. They may offer affection in fragments, but the whole consistency, reliability, and openness is missing. This absence creates an emotional limbo where hope and despair coexist, leaving you trapped in a painful waiting game. Moreover, this behavior undermines your capacity for healthy emotional boundaries. When someone consistently retreats or withholds communication during critical moments, it conditions you to tolerate ambiguity and emotional neglect. You begin to accept that love is sporadic, that silence is a form of punishment, and that your feelings are secondary to their avoidance. This is a dangerous pattern because it diminishes your sense of agency and normalizes emotional unavailability as a standard of care. The paradox of love is that it requires courage both to give and to receive. It demands vulnerability, honesty, and the willingness to face discomfort in the pursuit of connection. When someone runs from these demands, they reveal their incapacity to engage in the kind of intimacy that fosters growth and mutual respect. And in that absence, what you deserve is clarity, not confusion, presence, not absence. Turning to the emotional chaos that some relationships bring, it is important to understand the subtle but destructive effects of unpredictability. Relationships that feel like a roller coaster, where highs are euphoric but lows are devastating, activate an intense psychological cycle. This pattern is often characterized by emotional volatility, inconsistent communication, and frequent misunderstandings. While passion may ignite, the emotional instability ignites a deeper sense of insecurity and anxiety. From a neurological perspective, unpredictability in relationships triggers the brain's reward system in a way similar to addictive substances. The intermittent reinforcement of affection and attention creates a craving that is hard to resist, but the cost is high. Chronic emotional chaos trains the nervous system to remain in a heightened state of alertness, undermining your ability to feel safe and grounded. Over time, this chronic stress impairs not only emotional well-being, but also physical health. Emotionally chaotic relationships often mask deeper issues of control and power. The turbulence keeps you off balance, preventing you from establishing clear boundaries or asserting your needs. When your emotional state is perpetually unstable, it becomes difficult to make rational decisions or to recognize patterns that are harmful. This manipulation of emotional energy is a subtle but powerful form of control. At the heart of emotional chaos is a disconnect between what is promised and what is delivered. Words of love may be spoken, but actions contradict them. Apologies follow repeated hurts, creating a cycle of hope and disappointment. This inconsistency corrodes trust, the very glue that holds relationships together. Without trust, emotional connection becomes a fragile thread, vulnerable to breaking at any moment. Your intuition is a critical guide in navigating such relationships. The gut feeling of unease, the quiet voice of doubt, is your subconscious mind's way of signaling that the environment is not safe. Unfortunately, it is easy to dismiss these signals, especially when the person you care for offers moments of tenderness or promises change. But clarity comes from observing patterns over time, not isolated incidents. When your heart is consistently anxious and unsettled, it's a message from within that your emotional safety is compromised. Healthy love cultivates stability, not chaos. It nurtures a sense of peace and emotional clarity. It allows you to rest in the knowledge that your feelings will be heard, your boundaries respected, and your presence valued. When love instead creates emotional turmoil, it is not a reflection of your shortcomings, but of a mismatch in emotional capacities and needs. The choice to remain in or leave a relationship marked by disappearance or chaos is deeply personal and complex. It requires self-awareness and courage to break patterns that may be familiar or rooted in fear of loneliness. But in honoring your emotional health and demanding consistency, you open space for love that is sustainable and nurturing. Because love in its highest form is not a storm to weather, it is a sanctuary to come home to.
When someone gaslights you, they engage in a subtle but devastating form of psychological manipulation that seeks to distort your sense of reality. This is not merely a disagreement or occasional misunderstanding. It is a calculated erosion of your trust in your own perceptions, emotions, and memories. Gaslighting is a dark dance of power where the manipulator systematically invalidates your experiences, making you doubt what you see, feel, and know to be true. At its core, gaslighting attacks the very foundation of your self-identity. Human beings construct their sense of self through the stories they tell themselves and the feedback they receive from the world. When someone repeatedly tells you that your feelings are wrong, that you are too sensitive, or that events never happen the way you remember, they are attempting to rewrite your internal narrative. This rewriting is not a simple act of deception, but an assault on your autonomy, your confidence, and your sanity. The psychological damage wrought by gaslighting is profound. Victims often report feeling disoriented, confused, and anxious. They begin to question their judgment in every aspect of life, not just in the relationship where gaslighting occurs. This can lead to a pervasive sense of helplessness and a gradual loss of self-trust. The internal voice that once confidently guided decisions becomes a whisper fraught with doubt and fear. Gaslighting also serves the manipulator's need for control. By destabilizing your reality, they place themselves in a position of power where your dependency on their version of the truth grows. The relationship dynamic shifts from partnership to dominance and submission, and this power imbalance is often masked by charm, apologies, or declarations of love, making it all the more difficult to recognize and escape. Philosophically, gaslighting represents an existential violation. It assaults the fundamental human right to own one's truth and to exist as a coherent, self-aware being. When your perceptions are invalidated, it is akin to having your very existence questioned. This creates a psychological crisis where the victim struggles to reconcile the external world with their internal experience. The resulting cognitive dissonance is a form of suffering that is both subtle and devastating. Recovery from gaslighting requires reclaiming your narrative and rebuilding trust in yourself. This process is not linear. It demands courage, patience, and often external support. It begins with acknowledging that your perceptions are valid and that your feelings matter. Therapy, trusted friendships, and personal reflection become vital tools in reconstructing the fractured self. Awareness is the first step toward freedom. Recognizing the signs of gaslighting, such as persistent denial, blame shifting, or dismissive behavior, is crucial. But more importantly, you must cultivate an unwavering commitment to your truth. This means honoring your memories, trusting your emotions, and refusing to allow anyone to rewrite your story. Turning now to the deeper psychological terrain, the concept of attachment styles illuminates why some individuals gravitate toward partners who are emotionally unavailable or manipulative. Attachment theory, rooted in early childhood experiences, explains how our early relationships with caregivers shape our expectations and behaviors in adult intimacy. Those with anxious attachment often seek intense closeness but fear abandonment, while those with avoidant attachment withdraw to protect themselves from emotional pain. Understanding your attachment style is transformative. It reveals the invisible threads that guide your choices and emotional responses. For example, an anxious attachment might lead someone to tolerate inconsistent affection, mistaking it for passion. Conversely, an avoidant attachment might cause someone to shy away from deep connection, fearing engulfment. This awareness is not an excuse, but a powerful tool for growth. By recognizing these patterns, you can begin to disentangle yourself from unconscious scripts that no longer serve you. Healing attachment wounds involves cultivating secure relationships, learning to soothe your own anxieties, and developing boundaries that protect your emotional well-being. Importantly, secure attachment is not about perfection but about safety and response. It means feeling seen, heard, and valued without fear of rejection or manipulation. It is a state of being where vulnerability is met with empathy, not judgment, where intimacy grows from trust, not fear. The journey towards secure attachment is deeply personal and often challenging. It requires confronting painful memories and relearning how to trust not just others but yourself. This process is a reclaiming of emotional sovereignty, where you become the author of your relational narrative rather than a passive participant. As you build this inner security, you begin to attract relationships that reflect and reinforce your growth. The chaotic cycles of emotional unavailability give way to connections marked by reliability, respect, and mutual care. This transformation is not instantaneous, but unfolds with intention and self-compassion. Ultimately, understanding attachment styles empowers you to break free from harmful patterns and to create the kind of love you truly deserve. It invites you to step into a space of emotional clarity and strength, where you no longer settle for less than authentic connection. By embracing this knowledge, you align yourself with the possibility of love that is not only passionate but also profoundly healing and sustaining. When someone consistently dismisses your emotions, it is more than just a lack of empathy. It is a profound invalidation of your inner world. Emotions are not irrational whims or fleeting reactions. They are the language of the soul, the body's way of communicating its deepest truth. To have your feelings belittled, minimized, or ignored is to have your reality denied. This kind of dismissal fractures the foundation of trust and safety that every human relationship must rest upon. From a psychological perspective, emotions serve as signals, warning signs, guidance, and reflections of our needs and values. When someone tells you that your feelings are too much or unjustified, they are not only rejecting you in that moment, but also teaching you to doubt the legitimacy of your emotional experience. Over time, this creates a dangerous internal environment where you may begin to silence yourself, suppress your feelings, or apologize for simply being human. This suppression comes at a significant cost.
Emotionally invalidated individuals often develop a diminished capacity for self-expression and self-advocacy. They may start to believe that their feelings are a burden to others or that they are responsible for managing others' comfort at the expense of their own authenticity. This dynamic fosters resentment, confusion, and a profound sense of loneliness, even when physically close to another person. Dismissing emotions is a form of emotional neglect, and like physical neglect, it harms the development of a secure and resilient self. It teaches that vulnerability is unsafe and that to be loved, one must hide or alter essential parts of themselves. This is not love, it is conditional acceptance, which erodes self-esteem and nurtures insecurity. On a deeper level, when your emotions are invalidated, you lose connection not only to others but also to yourself. Emotions are the bridge between your inner experience and the external world. They help you understand what matters to you, what needs healing, and what boundaries you must establish. Without acknowledgement and validation, this bridge collapses, leaving you isolated in your own emotional landscape. Authentic connection requires emotional attunement, a meeting of minds and hearts where feelings are heard, respected, and reflected. When this is absent, relationships become transactional rather than transformation. They serve function or convenience, but lack the nourishment that feeds the human spirit. It is important to recognize that dismissing emotions is often rooted in fear or discomfort. Some people cannot tolerate strong feelings because it triggers their own unresolved wounds or insecurity. Others may have been raised in environments where emotions were seen as weaknesses. But regardless of the reason, the impact on the person whose feelings are dismissed is undeniable and profound. Healing from emotional invalidation involves reclaiming your right to feel. It means giving yourself permission to experience your full emotional spectrum without shame or apology. This reclamation is an act of courage and radical self-love. It challenges the internalized messages that told you otherwise and reclaims your emotional sovereignty. Seeking relationships where your emotions are honored is essential. This does not mean that every feeling will be met with agreement or comfort, but it does mean that your experience is taken seriously and treated with compassion. Emotional safety is the soil from which love grows. Turning now to the patterns of deceit and dishonesty, these behaviors are more than mere betrayals. They represent fundamental breaches of trust that corrode the very fabric of relationship. Truth is the cornerstone upon which intimacy, respect, and mutual understanding are built. When someone lies or withholds the truth, they fracture this foundation and create cracks that grow into chasms of doubt and suspicion. Deceit operates in shadows, it thrives on secrecy, omission, and the twisting of facts. Its purpose is often to control narratives, avoid accountability, or protect selfish interests at the expense of transparency. But the psychological cost of deceit is borne by both parties. The deceiver lives in a state of dissonance, balancing the facade with the reality they hide, while the deceived grapples with betrayal, confusion, and the shattering of trust. Trust once broken is not easily repaired. The human psyche craves consistency and reliability as a means of establishing safety. Lies disrupt this craving, replacing certainty with unpredictability. The impact can be devastating, triggering feelings of vulnerability, anxiety, and hypervigilance. The victim may become obsessed with uncovering the truth, questioning memories or doubting their judgment, leading to emotional exhaustion. Philosophically, deceit is a denial of authentic being. It is a refusal to meet others as they are and to show oneself as one truly is. It replaces genuine connection with illusion, sacrificing the possibility of real intimacy for the fleeting comfort of manipulation. This dynamic undermines the sacredness of human relationships and reduces them to transactions of power and control. Recognizing patterns of dishonesty requires keen self-awareness and a commitment to personal boundaries. It involves observing not just what is said, but what is withheld or contradicted by action. Trustworthy individuals show consistency between words and deeds. They embrace transparency even when it is uncomfortable. Healing from betrayal begins with reclaiming your agency. It means setting standards for honesty that protect your emotional well-being and refusing to tolerate deception. It requires confronting difficult truths and sometimes making painful decisions to preserve your integrity. True connection flourishes in the soil of truth and vulnerability. When honesty is present, even difficult conversations can lead to growth, understanding, and deeper bonds. Deceit, by contrast, creates a toxic environment where love withers and suspicion reigns. Choosing to honor yourself means choosing relationships that value truth as much as affection. It means recognizing that love without honesty is a fragile illusion, and that your heart deserves the steadfast light of transparency. So if he's doing these 5 things, he is not the one. And deep down, you already know it. Don't stay out of fear. Walk away with faith. Because the love you're dreaming of, it exists. But it starts with you choosing yourself first. You are not hard to love. You are just trying to get love from someone incapable of giving it. Your heart is worthy of deep, consistent, peaceful love. Don't settle for crumbs when you were born to feast. If this resonated with you, like, share, and hit that subscribe button. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Let's build a community where healing, truth, and love win. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Has this ever happened to you? And tell me, what topic do you want me to talk about next? Remember, this space is your safe place to rise, reflect, and reclaim your worth. Subscribe now for more raw truth, emotional empowerment, and real relationship wisdom. Your journey to stronger love starts here.